So here's all the wood that I'm in the process of squaring up and cutting to size for my my door project, but it's tedious work and very hard work, so I've taken a break to try and show you how to cut the hole for your guitar. So here's the body of my guitar and here's the neck. Right, now I've rounded one corner of this neck just because sometimes I think when you buy necks that's how they come, with rounded corners, and I'm going to show you how to deal with that. Just clamp the neck to the body and mark round the neck with a knife. Marking with a knife makes it a lot more accurate. So I can mark these lines in with pencil just to make them a little bit more visible. Like so. And then we need to mark the depth that we're going to cut to. I could use a marking gauge, or I could just use a ruler. So I'm going to say half the width of this neck. Actually a bit more than half, we'll call it an inch. So I just mark down here an inch. Actually I'm not going to make it an inch because that's quite deep. Make it 3/4 of an inch. I should square that line up as well really, but I can check that in a minute. And like I say, to be more accurate you would use a marking gauge, but you might not have one. So there's the rough markings there, that's the depth, and that's the cutout. So I'm estimating this radius at about 3/8 of an inch. So what we want to do is mark on here where the radius is going to be. So it's actually a diameter, that. So what we do is we mark 3/16 of an inch there, and 3/16 of an inch there, and we make a cross. Where the two meet is where we want to drill a hole. So drill a pilot hole first. Just in case we go offline, because we don't want to go too deep. We don't want to go any deeper than the cutout is going to be. Oh, drifting off a bit. This is why we drill a pilot hole, so that if we drift off we can adjust it. Fairly close. Okay, I had to switch drills because my battery drill wasn't big enough to take the 3/8 drill. So I have to be careful here. In fact, I might clamp this bit of wood just to be on the safe side. should do it. Right. You can't see with this light. There we go. Yes, that's a little bit more than I intended, but it should still be okay. If I try the piece of my neck in place, that looks not too far out. Right, so all I'm going to do is cut a diagonal between this back line and the depth line. So I'm going to keep well away from the side line, because we can chisel down to that at a later date. So I'm just going to cut this diagonal line on this side, because I've got the hole that I'm aiming for. I can just go as far as the hole there and down to, but not all the way to the depth line. And then we do the same on this side. But like I say, keeping quite a distance away from the side line, because we can cut that to size with the chisel. So there's a couple of saw curves down the edges of where the neck's going to be. So I'm done with the saw. You take as wide a chisel as will fit in the hole, but remembering that the wider the chisel, the more force it needs to drive it through the wood. Now we go to the edge of that saw curve. I'm in the line that I cut with the knife, and at this stage just a very gentle tap with the hammer. You don't want to go too far with that, because it can move the line that you cut with your knife. So then we just go on the top here, we take out, just wiggle the chisel from side to side like that. Keep your fingers on the top and behind, obviously, and once you cut down to that, you can just pop that out of the way like that. That's what Paul Sellers calls a knife wall. And then we can do that again, this time slightly harder with the tap, because we've now got reinforcement. We're cutting deeper into the waste wood, but we've now got that wall of material on the non-waste side that is strengthening that wall, so we're less likely to move it. So again, in with the chisel, and we can give it a good old wallop now, like that. And then once we've got that wall established, we can actually go all the way from the end grain here with this width of chisel. It takes a fair force to get through, so you can sometimes just do it with the tap of your hand. All the way through to there, and you take off that amount of material in one go. So go again and we'll deepen your knife wall. See, I can take off less material just with the just with wiggling the chisel like that. And you can see this bit is still there because I haven't cut down far enough. I haven't cut down that far with the knife wall. Once you have, that'll just pop out like that. When you're going from the end grain, keep the chisel pointed upwards. And it takes out great big chunks like that. And then back to the knife wall. Back in the knife wall. I'll just try cleaning up this edge a bit. So we're taking out all that waste wood. We're not worrying too much about the sides because we can cut those down later. This end wall is more or less how it's going to be once it's all cut, because we're keeping this knife the chisel vertical all the time. Every time we hit it, we're keeping it vertical like that, and then we're coming down to here. We're nearly down to the line. And now, when we're cut way past the saw curves we made earlier, now only come up to about here, so they're nearly gone. Back into the knife wall. I'm probably actually doing too much on that. You see how, I don't know if you can see how this is all a bit rough. It's because I'm taking a bit too much on each hammer blow. I'm going too far. If you don't go quite as far, it comes out much smoother. And the same applies on this flat face. See where I'm going gently, it comes quite smooth. But here, when I'm taking more, it's rough. And very nearly down to the depth that we want now. Very close. Still taking a bit too much there. So I'm not going in the end this time, I'm going a bit further down. trying to so I think I probably went a bit too deep there. I'm going to use a slightly smaller chisel now for the more delicate work. So I can get into the corners now with this smaller chisel a lot easier. Just break off that waste wood. Bench wiggling. And you see, as I've got my wrist on the work there, I'm making sure that my chisel stays in front of my hand. That way you don't end up losing a limb. So we can now go in these again. The knife mark I made is right there. I'm right in the knife mark. And just chisel down like that. I could be using the wider chisel for this bit. The width of it makes for a more accurate line. That's me right down to the line on there, on that side. Down to the line there. And I'll just go in there, clean up that corner. I don't think you can see that corner from this on this side. You can see when I do the other side. Cleaning up that back face, and then in here, this is a bit too much material to take in one go, so go halfway to the line. And then right on the line there, make sure it's vertical, and just give it a few taps. A few wiggles into the line there. Just tidy up that bottom edge. So there we are. That looks pretty good. I've got the radius on this corner, and that's square on that side. There's my neck gone. There's my neck. We'll try that in here, see how well it fits. Not quite as perfect as I'd want, and it's a bit wiggly. It doesn't feel flat on the bottom. Now, what I need to do is just sight along there. I can see it's Yeah, I've still got more material to take out there. See, with the smaller chisel, it's a lot easier to do it by hand rather than with the hammer. And the other thing you can do is measure the depth of the hole to see how level it is. So let's have a look. There's my, I've got a ruler here somewhere. So that's 3/4 of an inch. And not quite 3/4 of an inch. Let me see if I'm reading this right. And that's about 16th short. So I'm just going to take a little bit more off this front edge because I can see the lines that I didn't mark this line with the knife, so it was purely on that pencil line that I used. So I can just take it down to the pencil line. So that's more or less 3/4 of an inch there. So a little bit more to take out on this side. See how that neck fits now. It's not quite as tight as I'd want it, but there we go. Now, that's the way you would do it just with the chisel. But to get a nice perfectly flat depth, you'd use my router plane. So with the router plane you can get the tool all the way down to the bottom of the hole. Well, you could if it was long enough. Not long enough, eh? I haven't got enough depth. I can't get the depth here to get into the bottom of the hole, which is a shame. But what you would do if you did, you just use the tool in from the edges like that, and you can get it all the way in and get it all perfectly flat on the bottom. Yeah, so it's a shame I can't show you that. So there's my guitar. Sounds pretty good.